Welcome to a discussion. This isn't an indictment, this isn't a judgment, this is a discussion based on things that I think about, my life experience, and it's just trying to work through some information that we have, keeping in mind there's so much that we don't know. Something that is pointed out by profiler Pat Brown in her latest video. And we don't know. This is such a common expression used here on Humanimal Channel, isn't it? When people start getting a little bit too ahead of themselves in the assumption department. So there's lots that we don't know, but let's work with what we're told for now, based on the two primely positioned people, Jake Glidden and Cleo's mum, Ellie Smith. So, safe and sound, it's such a common phrase. We want to make sure Nana gets home safe and sound after visiting. Did she drive safely in her little car? Is she safe inside her home, safe and sound? We want to make sure a teenager is home after going to the movies with their friends. Are they now safe and sound? Is a child safe and sound in their bed? Right? And we're told that after arriving at sunset and setting up camp, making a dinner, Cleo is put to sleep. This involves tucking the sleeping bag around her under the air mattress that she's laid down on. Because, as Ellie says, it was going to be a windy night, it was an overcast night. Indeed, the weather built up to be quite rough by Tuesday, so much so that the search was temporarily suspended. So tucked in, to keep her warm, and then she goes, we wanted to make sure she was safe. If safety's really on your mind as the parent of a toddler up until a child that might make some poor decisions, definitely 4 years old, going through some of the steps, you might actually ensure that the tent is zipped up above where they can reach, right? Not down below where the little child can get up in the middle of the night, play with the door and wander out, right? So that would be one thing to ensure further safety. It's a type of protection. You're protecting a child, tucking them in, and you're protecting them just simply from themselves, just as you do when you make sure cupboards have child locks, handles are up high, chemicals are locked, medicines are up high. Basic steps for protection. That's okay. We're making sure that she's tucked in, but the tent, it seems, is zipped down here. Nothing really untoward about that, right? But to mention safety, if safety's in taking up some prime real estate up here, it's one of the things I would do as an adult. It's convenient when you can go out the door just opening up 1 or 2 feet from the bottom, but to keep a 4-year-old safe, even if she's the type not to wander, that's one thing I think about when I'm hearing these words and thinking about the steps that were taken. And it seems that then Cleo was down like a little light for the entire night until 1:30. 8 p.m. is probably a very reasonable and usual time for a young child to go to bed, maybe even much later than normal, and in these special circumstances of having travelled with her family up to the blowholes, of course bedtime routine, etc. is going to be a little bit later maybe. We don't know this, but Cleo would have been so excited. I imagine it would have been hard for her to settle. And in fact, it was an understatement, apparently, that she was excited to be there and looking forward to a holiday. So did she settle down and just go to sleep so smoothly at 8 p.m.? I guess so. I guess she didn't want to argue that she wanted to stay up because it was all so exciting, and stay up with Mummy and Daddy because, it's something that children like to do. And that's why I wondered about this bedtime routine at camp. What settled Cleo in so nicely? We're not told anything like this. She just was put to sleep. This is the terminology. So not, put in bed or put to bed, and then sat with until she fell asleep, read a story to, or as I've said before again, given an iPad just to look at or watch something, to help her just stay in bed. And children at this age too, they'll annoy the parents, won't they? They'll be just wanting to get up and down because they've got FOMO, okay? So one might argue that I don't have children of my own, but I'm a daughter. I've been a child. I've got siblings. I've grown up at campsites with siblings, with family friends, cousins, and I have nieces and nephews. I've been around many children in all stages of life when I was a child, all the way through to my current 50 plus status now. Okay, so these are just the things that just ticking in my mind. When was Cleo's little voice heard on the audio? Now, I guess a lot of us might assume that the CCTV audio picked up Cleo before dinner, so sometime after arrival and up until bedtime. Police haven't specified this. Was she heard at 1:30, awake and crying? Not sure, because Jake is not mentioned as rousing, as having woken up. He just goes to bed, and then the next thing we know about Jake, he's woken by Ellie, or Ellie turns to him and he's awake at 6 a.m. and says Cleo's gone. But we don't know when Cleo's voice was heard. We don't know what she's saying on this audio. We don't know what else we hear from the family, from the surrounding camp. We don't know if the 3 o'clock squealing tyres are heard. Were they heard from that more northern end of the Quabba Blowholes campsite where the family set up their tent, or was that further south? We don't know. We don't have that information right now. We have 0 sightings of Cleo by other members of the camp, other people camping at Quabba. Nobody has said, yeah, I saw them. I saw the family arrive. They're a lovely little family. They got set up pretty quickly. And I can tell you now, there's sometimes a lot of squealing with delight or grizzling, or, trying to just get the child to sit somewhere or stay in sight while, you're setting up the tent. I would expect if it's Cleo's voice carrying over to CCTV from the tent site that it was heard, that we're going to be able to hear all these other usual things on this audio as well. Not just that there's a few sentences of Cleo, but rather that it seems normal over the course of this hour and a half, say, even from, say, 6:30 to 8, that we hear a lot of regular things with regards to the setup of the camp, right? Parents interacting with Cleo, not just hearing her voice, but interacting. Put that down, and then hearing a clatter of some tent poles, for example, or why don't you do this one? You take this, or you understand what I'm saying, right? Just regular things, and but we don't know. We don't know what's on this audio, what else is on this audio. So it's hard. It's all just conjecture and speculation, isn't it? But it's what I want to know to help me decide what I think. Yeah, so safe and sound. Safe and sound. Police have moved forward the investigation in this way. Recently, they've gone to a place called North Plantation, and that is an outlying suburb of Carnarvon as you come into Carnarvon. I'll just explain about here's the coast. As you come down from the Quabba blowholes, you can come down and meet the northwest coastal highway here and go down into Carnarvon, go inland, go south. Locals would know you can come along Blowholes Road and turn several kilometres before this juncture of Blowholes and northwest coastal highway. You can swing south earlier than that and come out at a place called South Plantation. But yeah, further inland on the Galveston River at North Plantation, where the highway is, police have been door knocking, and I wonder if they are looking for more CCTV footage so that they can tell, did the sedan, and I talked about it, is it this Ford Falcon silver vehicle? I think this is probably just rumour, I don't know. But the sedan that was seen turning south there at about 3:30. If it's the same vehicle heard in the campsite at 3, then it was 3:30, right? And they weren't speeding, were they? Because we know that's a 30 minutes just going at a regular clip, okay? But do the police want to make sure they did then come all the way down along that highway? Where did they go? Head off inland towards Galveston, further south? Because if they've come down there, it would seem maybe they're not trying to cut down to go into Carnarvon. They were wanting to head further away on the highway. Or perhaps stop somewhere en route. And still, there's limestone tracks, dirt tracks everywhere. So that's just what I'm wondering, if they're just trying to make sure they know exactly where this car went, because the person that owns this vehicle, the driver, and indeed any passengers if there were any, they have not come forward to identify themselves. It might just be they haven't heard about the situation, but it might be for a reason that they don't want to be found because they have done something that they shouldn't have. So it seems that the car has been caught on CCTV on the highway, we know that, near Blowholes Road, but clearly there's no license plate that was managed to be picked up. So yeah, what do you think about this concept of safe and sound? What do you think about this very small window of light, half an hour really, and then I guess with the lights of the camp as you're cooking and still continuing to set up, you're visible, aren't you? And you'd be visible from someone peering at you from the darkness. But, really it's a small window of opportunity to notice the family, to see that there's a little girl, and to decide that you're going to take her because you've got a chance, because you see where she's going to be laid down to sleep. And even though you see that there are two parents, it's not like a single mom, there is a father figure there also. You're still going to try this brazen abduction. I'm not saying this isn't what happened, and because, and but it's got to be more rare than the adults who were last with Cleo, whether at home or at the camp. It's got to be more rare than one of those adults having committed a crime. Yeah, so what do you think? What do you think the police have on that audio? Do you think they've got really hard, fast evidence that Cleo was there at the camp? Do you think there's some trickery involved? Is this just a dreadful, dreadful crime of opportunity? Do you think, like some people, that Cleo was coveted and targeted? The family followed to the campsite? Or that someone with knowledge that the family were going to the campsite has gone there with the intention of taking Cleo? Whilst fences and doors and window frames, etc., were being checked for fingerprints and DNA evidence and things like that, and signs of break and entry or anything weird at the house, the forensic team certainly would have also have been looking for signs of dysfunction, of something unusual, of something pointing to an event at the home. But we bear in mind, Jake and Ellie are fully cooperating, okay, by handing over their phones, by allowing access to their home. But, if something has happened on the Friday, when was someone last in contact with Cleo? Was it on that Friday? Did she go to daycare? Because she goes to school. So I think she was in the school. She goes to a kindergarten. Well, okay, she was enrolled in a kindergarten. I would like to know, was she there on the Friday? So a timeline can be narrowed down. Because, again, as Pat Brown Profiler mentions, it's probably one of the best ways to go about hiding a crime of harming a child would be to change the location, that ground zero, to go camping and have the child go missing in a very dangerous, treacherous, remote location under the cover of darkness. So, if that is the terrible case, was it unexpected that there would be a system to record the family, or was that used as a tool? So much to worry about. I can't imagine the hell that Jake and Ellie are going through. There is nothing worse than losing a child. Their whole family, extended family, everybody in their family, their friend group, their community has been forever changed. They're like they've gone into a parallel universe, okay? And nothing's ever going to be the same for them again. So I don't want this to be used as an excuse for someone to come and say, I'm bullying grieving parents. When you think about things like this in this way and try and talk them through, we are doing nothing that law enforcement isn't doing, right? Law enforcement will be devastated for the family whilst at the same time investigating the disappearance of Cleo Smith, because Cleo Smith is their client. Cleo Smith is the one who is having justice sought for here. She's the primary concern and nothing stands in the way of that, right? And sometimes, terrible things need to be faced. I mean, I did say something horrible. I speculated that, well, what if there is some crazy personality disorder type stuff going on here? I mean, we've got a lot of accounts saying, what a lovely family and just beautiful little family, lovely people, etc. Of course, this is possibly true. The truth might be dark, whereby, other tragedies have hit the family with a little child dying, what has that made someone think about attention and things like that? This is just that's too dreadful even for me. It's something I think about, but I shouldn't even be saying it. I don't like the words as they're coming out of my mouth right now. So I don't want to think like that. But the reason why, when I run through the 50 scenarios that I go through with, there's 3 or 4, that's probably the most likely. The reason why those very dark, sick thoughts enter my head is because there's precedence. So that's why. If you do know anything about the disappearance of Cleo Smith, if you know of people that have been travelling through the area, as I've said before, the number for Crime Stoppers, it's 1800 333 000. And review your dash cam. If you've got any sort of security footage at a business around there, this can be north, this can be south, this can be inland, this could be anything. There might be something that you've forgotten about. For example, you might have forgotten that did you notice a sensor light coming on and off if you're in the area? I don't know. I don't know. Are you neighbours of Ellie and Jake's? And what did you notice on that Friday night? We know there's time for someone to travel back and forth from blowholes to Carnarvon to the blowholes. I've even imagined, was the car leaving because they forgot that they were supposed to have taken Cleo's bike with them, or a sleeping bag for her? I don't know. The tent was brand new. The sleeping bag might have been a brand new sleeping bag purchased for her along with the tent. I don't know when the tent was bought. People talk about DNA on the tent. It's brand new, as we've said. Would Cleo's DNA not be on there if she never really made it to the site? Well, no, because what if the tent was bought a week earlier and the family put the tent up in the backyard? Sometimes they do that, test that they can get the tent up quickly. Most people who are seasoned campers, you can work out how to erect these sort of structures easily, even if you haven't worked with that particular tent before. But maybe they've put that up in the backyard for a day for, to practice sleeping in overnight with Cleo, or something cute like that, or, so we don't know this, but we do know that forensics now have the tent, and they will be checking for everybody's DNA and for DNA that can't be explained on those zippers and on the canvas. Yeah. Anyway, I've rattled on long enough. So, yes, what do you think about the concepts of safe and sound, and what do you think about the usual goings-ons of arriving at camp and getting set up and settling little children? And I mean, I don't think it's unusual that the baby was maybe awake for a bit longer, but I don't know. Is it normal that Cleo was just put to bed at 8 o'clock and that was it? Until we're told 1:30 she woke Ellie and wanted a drink. Is this time only important because that's exactly what happened? Did something wake Ellie Cleo, and rouse Cleo. And then she's just said, Mummy, I want a drink, because was someone outside the tent? And did she hear? Or is 1:30 important for another reason, because an explanation had to be given for somebody being awake, moving around, that sort of thing, right? Oh, I just gave Cleo a glass of water, a sip of water. And then I've already talked about, water, the bed, the lack of utilities, wet beds, that sort of thing. But, any hustle bustle may be coming out at the middle of the night to bring out wet things, that sort of thing. You'd think maybe that audio would have been heard in the still of the night and captured on the CCT security device. All right, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. Comment below. And I've mentioned Pat Brown Profiler a few times. I've been really enjoying her YouTube channel. She hasn't been going for that long, but she talks about a lot of interesting cases, all the usual suspects, of course, Darlie Rotier and Amanda Knox. I think we have the same idea about Amanda Knox there. I think Amanda was extremely cagey because she just couldn't come out and say that she knew Meredith was being killed. But I don't think she was involved, but I think she was at the apartment when it happened. So she talks about a lot of cases. She'll talk you through nearly how to think about things, how to look at evidence. Evidence. This can't be stressed enough. Anything that you want to speculate on, well, you've got to make sure you're working from the right foundation, okay? That's something that we like to stress here, isn't it? When people come in with a whole load of nonsense, it's not suffered gladly. Anyway, not to say that I don't speak a lot of nonsense. I'm very, very, very far from perfect. I'm not a clear thinker. I know I say a lot of bizarre stuff sometimes, a lot of things where my logic is probably flawed or I've misspoken without meaning to, but I do try to just talk about things moving forward from what we know. I'll speak to you later.